This is the Chapter 4 test review video for Algebra. So we're going to do a couple of problems, well, about 20 problems related to what you will see on your test for Chapter 4. So the first problem, we are asked to write a linear equation in slope-intercept form to model the situation. So the situation is an internet company charges $4.95 per month plus $2.50 for each hour of use. So if we're trying to come up with a rate, usually we look for the words per or for each. Since both of these numbers have the words per or for each, we also need to think about this situation is modeling for 1 month. So the per month is not going to contribute to our answer. So we're going to just write $2.50 for each as our slope. So we're going to do y equals $2.50x plus the $4.95 because we're just modeling this equation for 1 month. The next one, we're asked to write an equation in standard form. Standard form is going to be where you have the x and the y variables on each side, or on the same side, sorry. But we need to first find our equation in slope-intercept form, and then just move the x and y's to be together. So if we're going to find our equation, we need our slope and we need our y-intercept. Right now they give us the y-intercept, but to find the slope we need 2 points. We have 1 point, that's obviously given to us, but then think about the y-intercept, that's also a point. It's 0, -2. So we're going to use these 2 points to find our slope, and we're going to subtract the x's, so 3 minus 0, that's going to be on the bottom, and the y's, 1 minus -2, that's going to be on the top. And this is going to be our slope. So we get 3/3, or 1. Now, once we have our slope, we can write it in slope-intercept form. And then, in this case, they actually give us our b value, which is our y-intercept. So we don't need to use a point to find it. We're just going to plug it in for b. So y equals 1x minus 2, or plus -2. And the next one, we need to put this in standard form. Right now it's in slope-intercept form. So all we need to do is move the x term over to be with the y. And we're going to subtract it because it's positive. So we get y minus 1x. They're on the same side of the equal sign, equals -2. And this would be standard form. The next one, we need to write an equation here in slope-intercept form for the line that is graphed. So, when you have slope-intercept form and you're trying to graph, or you're graphing it, you need to find the slope and you need to find the intercept. Well, we can first look at where it crosses the y-axis. That's our intercept. It looks like it crosses at -2. So we know our b value is -2. And then our slope, we can use the 2 points they gave us to find our slope. So this top point here is going to be 3, 0. And this point that I just pointed to is 0, -2. We're going to use that to find our m value, or our slope. So subtract our y's over our x's, and we get 2/3. So if we put it all together in slope-intercept form, we have y equals 2/3 x minus 2. And that's our equation. Next one, we need to graph the line with y-intercept 2 and slope negative 1/2. You always want to start your graph at the y-intercept. So we're going to start at negative 2 and put a point. And then our slope is telling us how to continue. Since it's negative, we're going to go down 1. And then we always go to the right for the denominator, so over 2. So down 1 to the right 2. And we put another point. And then once we have 2 points, we can draw our line. And that would be our equation. Next one, we're asked to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So we've done this a couple of times already. We're going to find the slope, and then we're going to use one of the points to find the b. So to find our slope, we subtract our y's over our x's. We get 5 over negative 1, or negative 5. That goes in for m. And then to find b, we need to pick one of the points to plug in for y and x. So if we pick 5, 4, we're going to plug in 4 for y, that's our y coordinate. 5 for x, that's our x coordinate. And we're going to solve for b. So we get 4 equals negative 5 times 5, which is negative 25, plus b. We add 25. And we get 29 equals b. So our final equation with our slope and our y-intercept is y equals negative 5x plus 29. Here we need to write an equation in standard form. Now, the form doesn't necessarily matter because in this case we have an undefined slope. So we can just ignore the fact that it says standard form, and we're going to use whatever form we can to write an equation. Think of an undefined slope on a graph. It's going to be a vertical line. So vertical lines on graphs go through the x-axis. So if we're looking at our point, the x-coordinate is 5. So our equation is just x equals 5, and that's it. So that's not a particular form. That's why I said don't worry about the standard form. Writing an equation in point-slope form. Point-slope form, we have our y minus our y-coordinate equals the slope times x minus the x-coordinate. So we're given the slope, we're given the point, we just plug it in. So y minus our y-coordinate of 0 equals our slope times x minus our x-coordinate of 3. And that is all we can do. Next, we need to write the standard form of the equation. So we're going to take this and simplify it. And as we're simplifying, it's going to turn into standard form. So first thing we need to do to simplify is distribute. We get negative 2/3 times x, or negative 2/3 x, plus negative 2/3 times 5. We don't need a common denominator, so we're just going to multiply numerators over denominators. That gives us negative 10/3. We have to combine our numbers, so we're going to add the 3. So now we have y equals negative 2/3 x and negative 10/3 plus 3. This is where we do need a common denominator when you're adding or subtracting fractions. So we're going to make it 3. That gives us negative 10/3 plus 9/3, or negative 1/3. So this is going to be negative 1/3. This right here is slope-intercept form, but standard form has us move the x and the y terms to be on the same side. So we're going to add 2/3 x to move it over with the y. So we have 2/3 x plus y equals negative 1/3. With standard form, we also can't have fractions, so we're going to multiply everything by 3, our denominator, and that makes it 6/3x, which simplifies to 2x. 3 times y, which is 3y, and 3 times negative 1/3, which simplifies to negative 1. So this would have to be our final answer with standard form, because you can't have fractions. Next one, write the slope-intercept form of the equation. We're going to do the same thing we just did in this last slide. We're just not going to take it all the way to standard form. So it's less steps. So the first thing we did was distribute. We need to simplify, so we get 3/4 x minus 3 times 3/4 is going to give us 9/4. And then we just add the 1. So we have y equals 3/4 x, and then 9/4 plus 1, we have to get a common denominator. That's 9/4 plus 4/4, which gives us 13/4. So we're going to write this as 13/4. Slope-intercept form, you are allowed to have fractions, so that would be our final answer. Next one, we're writing the slope-intercept form of the equation, but it has to be parallel to the graph that they gave us and passing through this point. So right now it is not in slope-intercept form. I would change it to slope-intercept form first to make sure we know the slope. So that means we need to move the x value over to be here, away from the y, trying to get y by itself. Divide everything by 3 to get y by itself. So y equals negative 9 divided by 3 is negative 3x plus 2. And that's where we're going to start. So parallel means same slope. So our slope here is negative 3. We're going to go through this point, 5, 3. So we're going to have to cancel our b out. We don't want our b. Use our same slope as negative 3 and plug in our point to find our new b. So if we plug in using negative 3x like this plus b, we're going to plug in 3 for y, 5 for x, and we get negative 15. Then to get b by itself, we're going to add the 15. So 18 is going to be b. We rewrite it all to be y equals negative 3x plus 18. And that would be our equation. Here we're writing the slope-intercept form of the equation perpendicular to the graph. So it's very similar to the last problem, but we need to first put it into slope-intercept form, just like we did before. Here's the equation. Y needs to be by itself, so we're going to subtract the 4x to move it away from the y. This is a negative 1y equals negative 4x plus 12. Divide everything by negative 1 to get y by itself. So I get positive 4x minus 12. Since we need an equation that goes through this point, we don't want our b. We also need to change our slope because it's not parallel, it's perpendicular. So we need to change it to be the opposite sign, so it's going to be negative, and the reciprocal, so 1/4. So our new slope with our equation is y equals negative 1/4 x plus b, and to solve for b, we're going to take our point and plug in our y and our x. So y goes in as 3, x goes in as 5, and we are solving for b. So this becomes negative 5/4, and negative 5/4, when you're adding that to 3, negative 5/4 or positive 5/4 becomes 1 1/4. So your b value is going to be 4 1/4 because it's 3 plus 1 1/4. So we're going to rewrite it with our slope that's perpendicular and our b value 4 1/4. Here we're given data for a scatter plot. We're given 2 points. We need to write the slope-intercept form of the equation. So slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. We need to fill in our m and our b. So slope is subtracting the y's over the x's. This is going to be 17 and 0.3. That's our y's. Over our x's, 2010 minus 2008. So that over 2, that gives us 16.7 over 2. We can simplify that to 1 decimal. So 16.7 divided by 2 gives us 8.35. That's our m. We're going to plug that in for m. So that goes in here, 8.35. And then our point, we can pick either point, 2010-17 or 2008.3. And we're going to plug in our x for x and our y for y. So if we do 2008.3, 0.3 is our y. So that's going to go in for y. And then our x is 2008. And we're solving for b. So 8.35 times 2008 gives me 16,766.8. We got to get b by itself, so we're going to subtract. So 0.3 minus 16,766.8 gives me negative 16,766.5. If we put it all together, we have y equals 8.35, our slope, x, plus negative or minus 16,766.5. And that's our answer. Next one, we need to make a scatter plot, write it a slope-intercept form, and then answer whether this is reasonable. If we're making a scatter plot, we're just going to plot the points. So if we're going to plot here, we have 36.1 is going to be about right here. Then we have 46.0, little bit underneath. This is hard for me to graph here, sorry. Then 55.4. 65.0. 74.7. And 83.4. So if I'm going to do my line through my points, probably want to go like this, down these points, or down all those points on the top. But I really need 2 points, so if I did my line like that, I would probably pick the top 2 points, which were these. And I'm going to write my equation in slope-intercept form. So I need to find my slope. That's going to be 6.1 minus 6 for our y's, over 30 minus 40. So 6.1 minus 6 is going to give us 0.1 over negative 10. We can simplify that to 1 decimal, which is negative 0.01, and that's going to be our slope. Our b value comes from one of the points, so if we do 36.1, that means 6.1 goes in for y, 30 is going to go in for x, and we're going to solve for b. So negative 0.01 times 30 is negative 0.3 plus b equals 6.1. Add the 0.3 gives us 6.4 for b. So we rewrite our equation y equals negative 0.01x plus 6.4. That's number 14. Is it reasonable to use the equation to estimate the entertainment spending for any age? I would say no, just because it doesn't matter what your equation is. Think about realistically. A baby is not going to spend based on a trend. It's going to spend nothing on entertainment because it doesn't have any money. And so that would make no sense to use your equation to predict how much a baby is going to spend. If you did say yes, you would just say that yes, the equation can be used, but it just wouldn't be realistic to estimate at any age. Next one, we're going to graph the inverse. Here we're given 2 points. Looks like this point is going to be 0, negative 8. This point is 4, 0. So to do the inverse, we're going to just flip it. So we're going to graph 0, 4, and negative 8, 0 instead. So 0, 4 goes up here. Let's go by 2's, negative 2, negative 4, negative 8, 6, negative 8. That's going to go here. Oops. And then we connect our points. So this would be your inverse. Then to find the inverse function, we need to switch our x and our y's. First we need to make f of x into y. So it's going to be y equals 8 minus 3x over 18. And then we're going to switch our y's and our x's. So x equals 8 minus 3y over 18, and now our goal is to solve for y. So multiply by 18, because it's dividing right now. On both sides, we get 18x equals 8 minus 3y. Getting y by itself, subtract the 8. So we have 18x minus 8 equals negative 3y. And then divide everything by negative 3. And you would have y equals 18x minus 8 over negative 3. In our final answer, we're going to put in f to the negative 1x for y. So this would be my answer. And one more, write the inverse of this. So we're going to switch our x and our y's, because right now we already have it in x and y form. So it's not going to be 5x, it's going to be 5y minus 17 equals 11 plus 3x. And we're solving for y. So we got to combine like terms. We get 5y equals 28 plus 3x. Then divide everything by 5. So y equals 28 plus 3x over 5. And then we need to put in our f to the negative 1x. And this is our final answer. And that concludes the Chapter 4 test review for algebra.